Nasa ba ang camera ko? And I am hearing myself. Ayun. Okay, so good morning everyone. Janet 5 tayo, ano?
Good morning, sir. Um, may nagpaalam po na ano po, a-absent po ngayong araw po sa klase.
And the reason why is...
Yung ano po, yung isa po yung dalawa po nagpa-vaccine, yung isa po nagparehistro, tas isa po masama po yung pakiramdam.
Okay. So, tatlo.
Apat, apat po, sir.
Apat, okay.
Send ko po yung mga names po sa GC. Salamat po.
Sige. Salamat po. Natapon ng tubig ko, my goodness. Ayan, so ingat ka sa pagbaba ng jeep, ha? Oo. Naalala ko yung senior ko na meme about cell division. Okay, so by the way, please be advised that this session is recorded para dun sa mga wala. Ayan. Nakaisip na ako ng paraan kung paano. So as far as I could remember, this is a Janet 5 class. Teka lang, ha. Medyo malakas yung cellphone. Makikihinaan. Okay, going back. Sana hindi na-record yung pagpapas ko. Kung hindi maririnig na pagka in-upload ko siya. I-upload ko naman sa YouTube or whatever. Okay, so let's start this. This is just a continuation of what we discussed the last time, kung di ako nagkakamali. I think we are on levels of communication, if I am not mistaken. Nakakabit naman siguro lahat ng gamit ko. Ayan. Kapag ni-scroll pababa, kung babalik din naman siya sa una kapag ayan. Okay. So last time we discussed about of course, communication process and its component. And we learned that it's a process of sharing meaning in any given context. And when we say components, we have it's made up of context. Types of context are physical. This is going to be discussed fully in your Gen Ed 11 if I am not mistaken. Oo, kasi may Gen Ed 11 din ako eh. Mamaya pala yun. So, may dagdag pa nga sa mga to eh, sa Gen Ed 11. Social context, relationship, historical context, past, communication affecting the present one. Also, we have, sasakalin ko na yung mga aso na yan eh. Hindi naman sasakalin, sorry. Figuratively, kasi baka makagat ako. Psychological is for moods and feelings. Cultural context, shared beliefs, shared values, norms of a large group of people. May that be, let us say, your courses. May that be the Filipino people, Chinese people. When we say culture, remember that this is not just for the races. Baka kasi isipin nyo, culture is equivalent to nationality. No, even in the Philippines, we have different cultures. Going back to our lesson the last time, right? Ayun, the Visayan culture is somewhat, as I said somewhat, different from the Tagalog culture. Sa kanila, walang po at opo, which is totally okay. Pero sa atin, meron po at opo. Sa atin, kapag sinabi nating yawa, at some point, okay lang siya. Pero sa kanila, take something into consideration kasi ang mura sa kanila ay mura talaga. Samantalang sa atin, if you say PI, it depends on the context pa. Ayun. Participants, the people that are involved in the communication situation. The message And the channel. The channel answers the question how is the message delivered. So kung may isa pala akong video na in-upload kahapon for the other BSBM, sponsored by Yakult, ngayon sponsored by Tubig. You need to be hydrated always. And the noise is anything that interferes with the communication. The Filipino word for this is sagabal. It's not ingay. Iba yung ingay eh. For example, you hear something in my background. Those are in Filipino ingay, but they cannot be considered as noise or sagabal in Filipino. Magkaiba yun ha. So pagka if you already have your Gen Ed 11 and it says noise in Filipino is sagabal, do not ask why it's not noise. Why it's not ingay in Filipino. Magkaiba yun. May ingay kasi na Tagalog naman yung context, so tatagalogin ko siya. May ingay kasi na hindi naman nakakaabala eh. Right? Like in summer, the buzzing of the cicadas are not interfering with any of our thoughts, right? Parang background noise lang talaga siya. And some of us, if we are alone in our house, you tend to, especially if you do not like quiet places, like, all right, you are going to switch on your TV, maybe play some music, in order for you to feel that you are not alone. Kung gusto mong maramdaman na hindi ka nag-iisa, manood ka lang ng horror movies. But yun lang, kung nag-open ka ng TV and it produces noise, that is not noise in communication kasi it does not interfere with anything. In Filipino, ingay lang siya. Kapag may inutos sa'yo, magulang mo, pero nakatuto ka sa TV, that is the time that we call that noise in communication. External noises, outside. Internal noises, it happens inside. Meron pa itong mga biases sa sa Gen Ed 11. Mas marami to sa Gen Ed 11 eh. Semantic noises for the incorrect use of words, language, symbols, mga ganun. And feedback. It is given by the receiver. Ayun. Sa Filipino, dalawa to eh. Feedback at saka tugon at saka, what is the other one? Epekto. Ayan. Yung tanungin nyo doon, Gen Ed 11 instructor nyo. Ayan, so it's just a review, kaya mabilis siya. Levels of communication, I think this is already tackled the last time, right? Dito ba yung nagtanong dito ba si Kyle? Siya yung nagtanong nung huli eh. Hindi sa kabila siya. Ayan. So okay, so when we say verbal communication, it involves the words, may that be spoken, written, or signed. Sign language is under verbal communication because it uses the idea of words. One gesture is equivalent to one word. Whoever you are talking with. Okay? So if you say, anong sabi ko nung huli? Yung sign na ganito, yung or simply yung ganon, it means thank you. Wherever you go, it would mean one thing, and that is thank you. Ayun. Unlike the next one, which is non-verbal communication, and this has a body language such as gestures, facial expression, if you raise your eyebrows, if you roll your eyes, right? For example, the two of you are friends, nakita nyo yung common enemy nyo, and then you roll your eyes. Ganon. That is under the non-verbal communication. Bakit ganon tayo mga Pilipino? Ay, bumaba na pala si Marlon sa jeep. Sayang di kita Oo na, sige na. Ganon tayo mga Pilipino, we are not actually close with each other, but if we have this common enemy, we became close with each other, right? We are going to discuss that under types of context. Types of culture, I think dito rin sa subject na to. Kung hindi, dun sa ano. Ay, oo, we are going to learn about two types of cultures in the world, which is also discussed under Janet 11. May Janet 11 na ba kayo?
Opo.
Meron na, ano. Ayun. So, maaaral nyo rin sa Janet 11 yung two types of cultures, saka itong mga elements na to. But, of course, I am doing my part. Kung siguro ay may iba dun sa tinuro ng instructor nyo, hindi iba, pero let us say collaboration ng two ideas. Ganun. Baka may hindi ako naituro at mapunan niya. Just look at it that way. Na-discuss ko na ba itong isa? Yes, right? Yung non-verbal communication. Ayun. The way you stand, balik tayo dito. The way you stand, the way you look at a person, right? Sometimes you cannot look at a person. If that person asks you, mahal mo pa ba ako? Mahal mo pa ba ako? And then you are like, you cannot look at the person in the eye, it means something, right? And of course, not being able to look at a person in the eye may mean different things depending on the person. See, it's completely different from sign language. Sign language, one gesture is equivalent to one meaning. But in this one, the way you move your feet, the way you shake your hand, the way you contort your faces may mean differently from one person to another. Ayun, yun yung clue nyo. Pag ba tinaas ko yung kilay ko, same ba na meaning ng pagtaas ng kilay nyo? Right? If I wave my hand, does it have the same meaning as the way you wave your hand? Ayun. Para may alam nyo. So that you know. In verbal communication, if I say cat, that means one thing for all of us. If I wrote that down, CAT, wala akong panulat dito eh. It means one thing for all of us. If I use sign language, ano nga bang paano i-finger spell? C-A-T, right? Ganon. Wala, ayan. C-A-T, if I am not mistaken. Kasi may dalawang magkatulad doon, hindi ko maalala. However, if assuming that I am right, that finger spelling is going to be the same for all of us, even though you do not know how to use sign language. Ayun. It may mean one thing. Doon sa verbal yon. Sa non-verbal, it may mean different things. Ayun, yun ang tatandaan nyo para may clue kayo. Yung isa, nakatungo, yung kausap, dahil nahihiya, yung isa naman nakatungo, nung kausap kasi tinitingnan pala yung paa at baka marumi. So, different things. Intrapersonal communication, it occurs within myself or yourself. I am talking with myself. That is the pronoun that you are going to use. Me and myself and I. Yun lang yun. I know my aspirations. I know my dreams. I know my weaknesses and strengths. Same thing as you, right? You know where you are good at. If I say, Christina, can you help me with mathematics? Tango ka lang or ano. Ayun, bigla nagpatay ng sabi si Christina, iniwan ako sa ero. Si Benjamin na lang. Kasi hindi ko makita sa screen ko eh. Benjamin, pwede mo ako matulungan sa mathematics?
Yes po, teacher.
Pwede. Tutulungan. See, in that way, Benjamin answered yes because he knows that he can. Why? Because of intrapersonal communication. He knows within himself, magaling ako sa math eh. He knows that. Why? He communicates with himself. And if you talk with yourself, it's not an absence of communication. It's just, you are just changing the level of communication. Talking with oneself, di ba sumasagot ka din? Right? According to research, if a person talks with himself, it means that one way or another, he is smarter than usual. Ayun. Minsan nga ay oo nga no, at paano kaya kung halimbawa na gawin ko to, tapos gawin ko yan, gawin ko yun, ay oo, ang ganda na naisip kong idea. So, In that way, you already have the elements of communication in place, right? You have the message, you have the participants, you also have the feedback. All of them occurred inside you. Ayun, so, kaya intrapersonal communication, pangit ang pasok ng hangin, sorry, is also a communication, albeit it's in the lower part of the levels. Ganun. Kumukumpas ako dito, kinakain ng background yung kamay ko. My goodness, ka-background. And next one is interpersonal communication. Two or more people is involved in this or are involved in this. And they, most of the times, they have a communicative relationship. Me to you, instructor to students, you to your heads, you to your parents, you to your classmates. Those are under the interpersonal communication, and it's successfully done if you already have established or you are going to establish relationship with people. Ayan. Public communication sa subject nung kailan ba? Grade 11 ata yun. Mas marami to sa grade 11 eh. If you still have Filipino in grade 11, mas marami tong levels sa may mass, may public, may whatever. Dito, pinaunti na lang eh. When we say public communication, it has the speaker and the audience. And it is expected that the audience is teka yung pamangkin ko maingay eh. Hindi ko naman mapatay yung ano. Nakinig tuloy sa recording. Okay, going back to that. We have the speaker and the audience. And the audience is only restricted to giving feedbacks. Tandaan nyo yung kanina, feedback, di ba? They are restricted in giving feedbacks. At sometimes they can ask questions, but most of the times they are just going to give feedbacks like clapping, laughing at a joke, or at some culture we boo at the speaker. In our culture, we do not actually welcome that, or we are polite enough not to boo at a speaker, right? If the speaker sucks, we are just going to keep quiet. But in the Western culture, they are more audacious in expressing their feelings. If the speaker sucks, they're going to boo at them. Ganun. Mga play nga nila eh. If the play sucks, they are going to boo at the play. Dula. And if you're going to ask what type of communication, sige nga, what type of communication is happening inside this context? Inside this classroom.
Gabarga po, sir.
Again, it's?
Public po, sir.
Okay. So, si Joseph yung sumagot. Joseph said public. But the correct answer is interpersonal. So, okay lang, Joseph. I think I know where you, what do you call this? Where you lapsed. Kasi iniisip mo na there is one speaker and there are a lot of listeners, right? But in this situation, remember that you are not just expected to just listen. Ayun po. So that's the explanation as to why this situation is under the interpersonal communication. Kasi at one point, if you do not understand the lesson, you are free to ask questions. Ayun. Kakaiba naman na... an example of public communication is SONA. That's one. Another is meeting the avance. Malapit na ang eleksyon na naman. Sana rehistrado na kayong lahat. Huwag sayangin ng boto. Pagka inalok kayo ng 500 piso, sabihin niyo, taas mo naman, gawin mo 5,000 piso, dagdagan mo ng isang zero sa dulo. Tapos iboto mo yung gusto mo. Or just to keep your conscience clean, wag mo nang tanggapin, di ba? Natay ko nga alokin ako noon ng ng 5,000 para bentahan ng My goodness ka, Marlon. Ano yan, Marlon? Ano yung background mo? Sige, buti hindi kita doon sa screen. Sige na nga. I am not questioning. Ayan, sumalangit na. Sayang hindi kita doon sa ano para may kaunting entertainment tayo. Magtataka siguro yung mga nag-playback kung anong nangyayari. Marlon, di naman kita pinagalitan. Bakit nagpatay ka ng camera? Functions of communication. Of course, communication has its use. The first one is, mas gusto ko talaga yung kaninang background. I don't know why. Kasi mas okay na estudyante yung gumamit. Pagka sa akin, baka mabawasan yung respeto nyo eh. We communicate to meet our needs. What are those? A species survival depends critically upon its ability to communicate effectively. We see the word species. So it's not limited to humans. Animals also communicate with each other, or it can be an interspecies type of communication, right? A lion will defend its territory by snarling or growling at a potential trespasser. A dog will also do the same. Hindi kilala ng aso, tinatahol lang, di ba? Dogs are territorial people. Animals. Yun. Also, if that is true with the rest of the animal kingdom, it is also true with the humans. Remember that we have what we call the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Tandaan nyo yun. Yung mula dun sa pagkain, pataas hanggang sa self-esteem. Ayun. One of those needs is to connect with people. The feeling to be loved, the feeling to be cherished, the feeling to communicate your emotions and feelings are all needs. Try mo na walang mapagsabihan ng problema. Right? So, it's not just a caprice, it's not just a desire, it's a need. You need to be loved. Of course, it's cliche, but it's 100% the truth, right? Subukan natin na may isa dito yung feeling niya hindi siya minamahal, mahalin nyo. Ayan. Kasi kayo naman ng ano eh. If you love a person, it's a reflection of yourself, not a reflection of that person. If that person is unlovable but you love that person, it's not a reflection of that person but of you. But going back to this, you need you feel the need to be loved, and of course it ties with communication. Hindi ka naman pwedeng magmahal nang hindi kinakausap yung tao. Goodness. Unless that's loving someone from afar, pero iba pa rin yun. Number 2, we have we communicate to enhance and maintain our sense of self. Because we communicate, we'll learn who we are and what we can do. Going back to what I said earlier, still remember the part where we discussed intrapersonal communication? Your sense of self is developed if you know how to communicate with yourself. You know what you can do. You know that you suck at mathematics. You know, I know that I am dumber than a rock when it comes to mathematics. Tanungin nyo ako ng random numbers. Yun pala, no? Tanungin nyo ako ng kahit ano sa math. Sasagutin ko ng mabilis. Sige, Christina. Tanungin mo ako ng anything sa math. Sasagutin ko ng mabilis. Kahit ano, sige.
Ang square root po ng 115.
Okay. Ang sagot, mabilis. See? Mabilis. Wag na. Sige, tuloy tayo. Sir, bakit? Di ko na-gets. Ewan ko sa inyo. See, you know that Sir Isla is not good at mathematics. Ayun. Tanungin mo ko ng kahit ano, sasagutin kita. Sino pumatay kay Lapu-Lapu? ko na maalala yung kasunod na joke. Okay. So, gets na ni Christina kung bakit. Ayun. So, I know that I am corny. I know that I am bad at mathematics. I know that some point I am bad with talking with people. Oo, aminado ako doon. I may be good at talking with a lot of you, but one-on-one, medyo awkward na ako pag one-on-one. Why do I know that? Because I am able to communicate with myself. Ayun po. Kaya alam mo, kilala mo kung sino ka. Kilala mo kung bakit ka ganyan. You know your aspirations and blah blah blahs because you are successful in establishing communication with yourself. Ayun po. Number 3. We communicate to fulfill social obligations. We greet people, talk, and communicate with them in order to meet our social obligations. We have relationship with people, and with relationship comes obligations, right? If you see, even greeting people is an obligation. Going back when you were still in high school, you are taught by your teacher to greet other teachers because it's one of our obligations as students. Ayun. Kaya sa akin, nung ako yung nagtuturo sa high school, pagka dumating sila, go. Hindi niyo ako babatian, okay. Okay lang naman, diba? Sila lang naman ang gustong binabati eh. Especially yung mga teacher niyo nung high school. I do not know why. But it's one of the what we call obligation. You also have an obligation to Sir Isla, of course, you know that. You know what those are. Why? Because we are tied with a relationship, and that is student to teacher or instructor. Ganun. You also have obligations with your parents, with your siblings, with your classmates, as long as you are bound to a relationship with them. Tandaan nyo, relationship is not always what do you call this, limited to romantic ones, kasi doon natin siya in-equate eh. Ayun. And we communicate with them to fulfill those obligations. You text your father that you're going to be late because you have an obligation to do that. Ayun, we are Asians, so hanggang sa tumanda tayo in America, di ba? Pag-aralan natin yung sa two types of cultures. Yung sasabihin ko sana, doon na lang. Bakit daw tayong mga Filipino ay ang isang weird daw sa atin, ang moody raw nating mga Pilipino. That's why. Nagtataka sila kung bakit. Marami na-offend sa atin dahil sa ganung bagay. Hindi naman marami, pero may na-offend. We are going to learn that in two types of cultures. We communicate to develop relationships. Ayun na. Through communication, we develop relationship with other people. It's either we start a relationship with other people, develop a relationship with other people, and also we end relationships with other people using communication. If you want to break up with this person, of course, you are going to stop talking with them. Naturally, that is what is happening, right? If you want to end friendship, one thing that you can do is stop talking with that person. If you want to start a relationship, kung gusto mo manligaw, di ka naman makakapanligaw kung di mo siya kakausapin. Right? So, you are going to use communication. Ayun. If you, of course, still wanted to be acknowledged as a student of an instructor, of course, you still have to establish those relationships. Kasi, as I told you before, if you are not present in a given period of time, then I'm going to consider you a dropout of my subject. Right? It falls under number 4. Ayun. Number 5, we communicate to exchange information. May those information be from reading books, observations. You can get information from observing. Just like what the Mariteses are doing, ayun, even though they are gossiping with one another, that is still exchanging information. Ayun po. Kahit sabihin mo chismisan yun, information pa rin yun. Albeit, an incorrect one. Sabi nga nila sa'yo, kung pinagchichismisan ka ng mga tao na to, hayaan mo na. Diba? The people that love you will keep you in their hearts. The people that hate you will keep you in their minds. Ganun lang yun. Hayaan mo, wala kang ginagawang masama, diba? Hayaan mo, mamatay sila sa kaiisip sa'yo. Diba? Halimbawa, Christina, pasensya na ikaw talaga nakikita ko sa screen ko ha. Halimbawa, may kagalit ka. Hayaan mo na, huwag ka na magalit sa kanila. Isipin mo na lang na iniisip ka nila. In that way, diba? Love and hate are almost the same. Nasabi ko lang dahil doon sa ano. And we also gather information from media, right? And from our classmates, from your instructor. We can say that what we are doing in this class is under number 5. Sir, hindi naman po kami nagbibigay ng information pabalik sa inyo. Then we can say that even though the exchange is one way, kaiba yun ano. If I am just the only one giving you information, it still falls under number 5. Ayun. Your classmate told you that you are going to have a quiz later in one of your subjects. You do not have any information to offer back, which is okay. It still falls under number 5. Number 6, we communicate to influence others. We use communication in encouraging and persuading others towards something like motivating a friend to study for examinations. You want this person to do something, mostly this is done by salespeople. Ayun, mga sales talk nila. They're not going to force you to buy something, right? Bilhin mo na tong container ng tubig na to, di babarilin kita sa ulo. Wala namang ganun, di ba? Ayan. Walang ganun. If you go to Pure Gold, the promodizer is not going to force you at gunpoint to buy something. They are going to talk to you into buying something, right? Bili ka na ng computer na to. Hindi pa nabubukas yung system, nakakapag-download na. Saan ka, di ba? Ikaw naman yung humanga, kaya binili mo. So, you are influenced by that person. Not just in business. Ayun. So, ito yung gagawin nyo pala since kayo ay nasa BSBM. Although, hindi ko sure kung saan kayo. Kasi sa amin, dalawa yung BSBM eh. Yung isa ay sa business, tapos yung isa ay sa human resource. Ayun. Pa-chat nga kung saan kayo. Kasi parang may human resource din ata sa CVSU. Ang sinasabi ko, ayun na. Sales talk is under that. What else? Politicians are not going to force you to vote for them, right? They are going to influence you to vote for them. For example, they are going to be giving out their programs, iba pala yung platform. Programs, their plans if they are elected. Ayun. So, yung pagboto sa kanila, mga ganun. Infomercials are another example of that, di ba? Yung nagbebenta ng mga kawali na hindi dumidikit yung ano. Bumili na kayo ng kawali na to, hindi pa nilalagay sa kalan, umiinit na. Di ba? Ang hindi ko lang nakikita na sa infomercials ngayon, yung mga pampalaki ng dibdib, mga ganun. When I was 15 years old, 15 nata mga ganun, yun yung mga nakikita ko sa TV. And of course, I'm going to admit that I watch those. Why? I was 15 back then. Malamang 15 or 16, those are the most hormonal stages of our lives. Diba? Ano? Okay, so that is for number 6. You are going to be influencing other people to do something, to buy something, or even to believe in something. Next one is principles of communication, aka what is true with communication. Ayun. The first one is communication is purposive. Thus, purposive communication. The purpose of communication may be trivial or significant. It may be trivial, like telling jokes, just like what I did earlier, that is trivial. Yung pinagawa ko kay Christina is trivial. Trivial in another sense means not important. Ayun. Or it may be significant, like this lesson is significant, right? Your lessons in your major subjects are also significant. But in one way of evaluating if that communication situation is successful is to know if the purpose is achieved. For example, if I'm going to tell a joke and you all laughed because of that, we can say that the communication attempt is successful. Nag-joke ako at hindi kayo tumawa, then I have to reevaluate. That's another. If you believe in this politician and I do not believe in that, and I want you to not believe in that too, what I can do is, of course, persuade you to not believe in that person, right? If I am successful in doing those, so we can say that the purpose of that said communication is achieved. If you learn something from my class, the purpose of communication is also achieved. Ang problema lang sa mga klase ay, according to psychology, mga 20 minutes lang yung kayang i-hold na utak natin. Gusto ko magpa-break ng 20 minutes, hindi pwede. So, yun. So, ang ginagawa nyo talaga is, you take in this information. If you are offered another one, itatapon nyo uli to make room for the next information, right? Ayun. Next one is communication is also continuous. It means it never stops. Even the silence of your friend is a way to communicate. Even though that person is not talking with you, it's also a way of communicating. Ayun. If you notice that Sir Isla is not giving you an activity for one whole week, but Sir Isla is active, it may mean another thing. So I am still communicating with all of you that you should not fret because I am not giving you anything as of yet. Diba? Wala naman magtatanong dito at sasabing, Sir, kailan po ipapasa yung activity numbers 942? 942, kabahan na kayo. Then I'm going to say, wala naman akong binababang 942 ah. Saan mo nakuha yun? So, the silence in between those is also another way of telling you of something, right? If your friend is quiet, it also tells you something. Na tayong mga Pilipino is another example of that. Diba? Pagka nagtatampo tayo, ang tawag mo doon? Passive-aggressive tayo, diba? Nagpapakita tayo ng galit ng tahimik na paraan. By the way, it's another thing matututunan natin sa sa two types of culture. Yung pagtatampo. I told you before that the word tampo does not have an English word. We are going to learn why in that lesson. Another one is communication messages vary in conscious encoding. It may occur spontaneously. We may not talk about it. If two friends are talking with each other, most of the times they are not thinking about what they are going to talk about, right? It's just like saying you go with the flow. Or it could be also based on learned scripts, or it could also be constructed based on the understanding of the situation. One example of this is you not opening your microphone to shout at the rest of the class. Why? Because you already have an understanding that it's not the right way to do things. Ayun. So you know, you have an idea. Because communication may vary in conscious encoding. It may be unconscious or it may be conscious. That is the range that we have. You may not think about it, or you may have a lot of considerations. Like, of course, if you're talking with your best friend, there are less restraint, right? But if you're talking with someone who is not close to you, you are going to observe some restraints. Ayun. Medyo maingat ka magsalita pagka hindi mo ka-close yung tao. Hindi mo nga mumurahin yung tao na hindi mo ka-close. Unless galit na galit ka talaga, right? But in that way, we can place those situations under this principle. Ayun. Next one is communication is relational. In any communication setting, people not only share meanings but also negotiate and enhance their relationship. When we say negotiate, dalawa lang naman yun, di ba? Makukuha mo o hindi. You want the approval of this person, you have to negotiate. Although it's at sometimes it may be unconscious, right? You want to be friends with this person. Of course, you're not just going to go her way or his way and say, "Oy, magkaibigan na tayo ngayon ha." Parang it rarely happens in the Filipino context, but it usually happens in the American context. Mga ganun. And as I said, it plays a role in developing, maintaining, or dissolving relationships. You want to end a relationship, you want to start a relationship, you want to strengthen your relationship, you want to be a best friend with this person. May mga ganun tayo minsan, no? Nakikita natin yung tao, tapos we are going to wish na, sana best friend ko na lang to. But of course, you cannot just snap and then that person is automatically your friend, right? You still have to negotiate your way up to that level. Kahit na yung malalakas na relasyon, di ba, na tumatagal is still under negotiations. It's not fixed if you're going to look at that. It's still developing. You maintain kung may relationship na fixed, di ba, kahit magloko ka eh. Okay lang, di ba? Pero kung halimbawa na sasabihin nyo, magloko sa boyfriend and girlfriend niyo ay okay lang. Naku po, sapakin na ng buong klase yan. Pumila kayo doon sa tao na sapakin natin isa-isa. So, huwag kayong manloloko naman. Tagal-tagal inalagaan ng nanay niya, tapos tagal-tagal kang inilagaan ng nanay mo, tapos dudurugin lang yung puso mo, or whatever. Paano man tumakbo yung quotation na yun. Nagiging corny na si Sir Isla. Communication also has its ethical implications. When we communicate, we must recognize some ethical standards. And ethics is a part of the study of considering if something is right or wrong. And every discipline has its own ethical considerations or ethical standards. For example, you are going to be, I'm going to just assume, okay? You are going to be business people when you graduate. If you are in the workplace at nagkamali ka, you're going to say, oops, right? At some point, it's pardonable. Pag ako nagsabi ng oops dito sa klase, okay din lang. Kapag sumagot kayo sa tanong ko at nagkamali kayo at napa-oops kayo, okay din lang yun, right? Nasaan yung mali? Sa loob ng klase, it boils down to this. There are a lot of places in which mistakes can be accepted, and classroom is one of those. So kung magkamali kayo sa klase ko, it's 100% okay. Diba? It's a room for improvement. However, there are fields or discipline in which mistakes cannot be observed. Kapag ang teacher ang nagsabi ng oops, kapag student ang nagsabi ng oops, okay lang. Sige, hindi nakikita sa ano. Ayan, okay lang. Pero subukan nyo magsabi ng oops ay surgeon. O yung nag-o-opera sa inyo. Nakahilata kayo sa kama, tapos narinig yung bumulong, oops. Diba? And that is called malpractice. nakakasuhan yung gano'n na magkamali ng opera na ganyan, nagkamali ng bigay ng dose ng gamot, if I am not mistaken. Ayun, so nakakasuhan sila. And pagka ang teacher nagkamali, halimbawa nagkamali ako ng isang paliwanag dito, hindi pala ganito ang paliwanag nito, parang kalokohan na sila ay ma-demanda, di ba? Nagkamali lang ng turo ng photosynthesis, galit na galit agad, di ba? So, okay lang, lalo na sa student. I believe that students, mas okay nga na mas marami kayong mali sa isang klase para maitama kayo ng maitama, di ba? Ayun. Wag lang doktor talaga. Pagka doktor narinig ng mag-oops, parang nakakatakot na, di ba? Ayun. So, may paniniwala nga ako, sabi ko doon sa isang naging student ko ng nursing, para hindi magkamali, dapat hindi pagod, di ba? So, okay, sana nabigyan sila ng mga mas maikling oras ng trabaho. Ewan ko kung yun din ang palagay nyo. And I do not even have a full idea of what is happening in the medical industry. Pero sana nabibigyan sila ng maayos na sustento, di ba? Well, that's just my point. Kung may iba kayong palagay, it's okay lang. And communication is learned. Communication is a skill, therefore you can learn it. You can persuade a person. Pansin nyo, if this person speaks, you can believe in him or her almost instantly. Why? Because they learned those skills. Ayun po. Remember when they say, sabi nila, introversion is equal to shyness? Hindi naman, di ba? Introversion is a way of gathering energy. Kasi kung introversion is equal to shyness, then I should not be teaching here kasi I am also an introvert. Ayun. And maraming introverts sa sa entertainment industry. Would you believe that Vice Ganda is also an introvert? Pero she is one of the most outspoken person there is, right? And one of the most famous or infamous introverts ever is Adolf Hitler. He is an introvert. Ayun. And he is, alam niyo kung paano niya napaniwala yung buong Germany to kill the Jews? Ang dami nilang pinatay, di ba? Hindi niya tinakot yung mga Germans. He spoke with conviction, he spoke with pride. Pag narinig niyo siyang magsalita, napagkagaling niyang magsalita talaga. And he learned that. He realized that speaking can convince people. So he used that to his advantage. At dahil doon, pumasok ang Germany sa pinakamadilim na parte ng history. And if you agree with Adolf Hitler, please wag niyo akong kausapin. Why? Learn the history. Kung agree kayo kay Vice Ganda, it's okay. Vice Ganda is, I can say that she is a good person, right? But Adolf Hitler is totally a bad person. Pagka nabuhay uli siya, babarilin ko siya. Ganun siyang kasama. When a child is born, they cannot talk, right? They learn how to communicate. They know that crying can give them food. It can also give them comfort. If they cry, they know that someone will get them. Kaya yung bata umiiyak. Because they know. When we were a child, we know that crying can give us something. Ayun. Point of consideration, even a child learn how to communicate. It's not something that is born in you. Ayun po. Another thing is, try nyo. Hindi naman try, wag naman. A Japanese couple went to the Philippines and the child is born in the Philippines. It does not automatically make the Japanese child fluent in Japanese, right? But we know that that Japanese kid is going to learn Filipino. Learn. Ayun. Kahit sa inyo, panganak kayo sa Japan. It's understandable that you are not going to be able to speak Filipino. Pero matatas kayo sa Japanese. Ayun. Because communication, language in general is learned. It's not something that is within us. Ganun. And the last part of our discussion is communication ethics. Marami to, but it boils down to a few. Like, first, we speak with sincerity. We speak with truthfulness. Do not lie. Second, you do not expose your listeners to lie. So you are not going to lie. You do not expose your audience to falsehood or even half-truth. Right? Even half-truth is a lie. Consider half-truth as a lie. Ayun. For example, yung ano mo, diba? Yung boyfriend mo, for example. Tinanong mo siya kung saan siya nanggaling. Kapag sinabi niyang tropa, totoo naman. Pero may tinago siyang part noon. It's half-truth. Hindi niya sinama yung part na may kasama siyang ibang babae. Example lang. Number 3 is, it does not premeditatedly alter the truth. It means that you do not consider changing the truth. Present the truth as it is. Number 4, ayun nga. Present the truth as it is, but in a way that your audience would understand. Right? An example of this is explaining your course to a 4-year-old, to a 10-year-old, to a 16-year-old, and to students your age. Diba? But can you explain your courses to a 7-year-old kid? Diba pwede? Pwede yun, diba? That's allowed. That's possible. However, you are going to adjust the way that you explain it to a 7-year-old. Subukan mong gawing komplikado yan at malilito yung bata. Ayun. But of course, if you're going to explain your course to an IT student, to an engineering student of your age, you can raise the level up. Pwede mo nang gawing komplikado, kumbaga. Ayun. Pwede mo nga explain sa bata yung quantum mechanics eh. However, you are just going to lower the level. Kasi pagka ginawa mo siyang talagang complicated, hindi magigets ng bata yan. Raise the listener's level of expertise by supplying necessary facts. You do not just say something. You say it with facts. Ganon. Hindi yung basta, for example lang to ha, you are anti-Marcos, and then you are going to say, ay mga Marcos, magnanakaw naman yun eh. No, you do not just say that. Kunwari lang yun ha, example ko lang yun. The example that I have does not reflect my beliefs. Ganon. Magta-time na pala. So, yun. Present lang ng facts. Number 6 is, do not force your listener to believe in you. Number 7, do not invent information. Oo, nangyayari to sa sa scientific community. May mga researchers na ininvento lang. Ayun tuloy. Na-discover, nalaman na may mga ganun pala, pinabago. Or tinanggal. And number 8, if you're going to give credits accordingly or properly. Do not use CTTO. Please. You have researches way back in your senior high school, right? No teacher taught you to use credits to the owner. No. You have to mention, if that is a post on Facebook, mention the source. Kung, for example, I'm going to quote Joseph, I am going to include his name. I'm not just going to add CTTO. Pakiusap po ha. Kung in-add nyo ako sa Facebook at nakita ko kayong naglagay ng CTTO, nako po. Eh, baka itakwil ko kayo. Ay, grabe naman si Sir Isla. I'm serious. Yun. Sir, paano hindi kami maalam gumamit ng APA at saka MLA? Matututunan naman. There is the internet o kaya credit the person himself. Ganun. Hindi ka maalam, lagay mo yung pangalan niya. As simple as that, di ba? Ay, ito nga pala is sabi ni Sir Isla. Ay, ganun, no? But just do not use CTTO. So, domo arigato, minasan. And, ayun, thank you for listening. And, teka lang ha, at papatayin ko lang ang recording. And, sa mga hindi pa nakaka-attend ng klase, hello sa inyo. Ayun. Hindi ko pa pala pinapatay, so pwede kayong, ayan, pwede rin kayong mag-hello doon sa mga hahabol, magpe-playback o kaway-kaway na lang. Ayun. Si Marlon lang ang kumaway. Ayan. So, I'm going to end this recording in 5, 4, 3, 2,